Part 2 of the Runaway Hamsters. September, October and November proved trouble-free for Toby, Tilly and Tad, as they soon got into the routine of looking after their furry friends. However, with the hustle and bustle of the preparations for the Christmas holidays and the time-stretched teacher trying to cope alone without any assistance in the classroom, Mrs. Bland forgot to mention that Toby, Tilly and Tad were to take Flip, Flap and Flop home for Christmas. Just as Mrs. Bland was driving home, taking in a deep sigh of relief, thinking that she was going home to pack for a well-earned skiing trip, she leapt in the car. "Oh no! Flip, Flop and Flop are on their own!" Blind panic filled Mrs. Bland with blistering speed. She swerved the car round at the nearest opportunity and went back to St. Oswald's, which stood silently in the wintry dappled light. Banging on the caretaker's door, who happened to live 3 doors up from the school, Mr. Stewpot gently peeked from behind his lounge curtain. Gasping, Mrs. Bland puffed, "Is there any chance you could open up the school again? I'm so very sorry, but I've forgotten the animals in my class." Mr. Stewpot duly obliged, and in his mellow manner plodded up the road and into the playground. Once in the main building, Mrs. Bland flew through reception, the dinner hall and the gymnasium, straight to her doorway, her scarf wafted high in the air. She rattled her keys with nervousness, whilst mumbling to herself that she couldn't look after the animals and she was going away for the holidays. Her mind was racing, not knowing which way to think. The door flew open to Class 2, and Mrs. Bland arrived at the cage. There weren't any hamsters to be seen. She scrambled onto the floor, shouting, "Flip, Flap, Flop, where are you?" The caretaker stared wide-eyed. He was planning to go off on holiday too, so couldn't spend too much time searching. Mrs. Bland's handbag got thrown to the floor, and out she dragged her torch from her desk to search every nook and cranny. She scoured the room with a detective's eye, but nope, those furry friends had flown the nest. Despite carrying a thorough search of the nearby areas and ringing Toby, Tilly and Tad's parents, Mrs. Bland was left dumbfounded. She had to abandon the search and slink off on her skiing trip with a heavy heart. Meanwhile, Flip, Flap and Flop were having a great time snuggled together in Tom's satchel. His mum had the shock of her life when she came to read his newsletter and wash up his sandwich box. She put her hand into Tom's bag and felt something furry and warm and soft, and then pulled out 3 furry balls of fluff. "Tom, are you meant to have these home for the holidays? I don't remember you saying anything." "No," Tom said excitedly. "My name never got drawn out of the bowl to look after Flip, Flap and Flop. But Mom, how did they get in there?" "You tell me." "Well, I suppose we'd better take care of them now, seeing as they're here. But my goodness, I think you have 3 escapees on the run from school." "Luckily, we've got an old cage. I've tried ringing the school, but there's no reply." Meanwhile, Mrs. Bland's baffled, bewildered mind ran overtime, and poor Mr. Stewpot was left back at camp checking everywhere. He turned chairs and tables upside down, checked inside mop buckets, in the broom cupboard, and even roped in the vicar from the cosy village chapel and the sweet shop owner to add to the search. On Christmas Day, at the morning service, Tom's family caught up with Mr. Stewpot, Toby, Tilly and Tad's families. Tom excitedly was able to explain what they'd found in his bag, and it was agreed that all the children could take it in turns to visit Tom and have a cuddle with their furry friends over the coming days. Tom's mom even wrote a letter to Mrs. Bland to reassure her of the events ahead of her return. So, a Merry Christmas was had by all, and everyone took some responsibility. But the mystery still remains. How did all 3 animals get into Tom's bag? I'll leave you to make up the ending. There could be several options. Hope you enjoyed the story. Bye for now.